Hi, my name is Natalie Calzadilla, and I am a T1D mom, as you know. First, I want to say I'm sorry that you have joined this club, and for your child's diagnosis. I know how hard it is. I know it's so many things, right? So many things. But I'm just going to share what my journey was like, and hopefully it is of some hope and support and might help you to make some decisions, and just or give you some peace of mind or to freak you out. You just don't know. What I've noticed is that people take this news differently depending on the constitution of your levels, like of your anxiety. If you happen to be an even keel person, you'll probably take this in stride. If you happen to be a very anxious person like I am, before this even began, if you're OCD, if you're type A, if you're a black and white thinker, all of these things, you might struggle. If you're very sensitive emotionally, if you're an empath, it's gonna be challenging, and it was for me because I am all those things. I'm not the even keel person. I am an empath, OCD, OCD, not OCD in the crazy in the clinical sense, but in the sense that I'm a Virgo and I'm type A personality, and I just like things very like black and white and organized, and I don't do well in gray other than my hair and this shirt. So, but if anything that diabetes has taught me and us is that it is always a gray area. There are no clear-cut answers nor results. It is a bizarre interpretive dance it's just wild. But what I can say is that I have met a few T1Ds who have lived with diabetes for over 50 years. So imagine, before Dexcom devices or CGMs, before insulin pumps, they made it with just finger sticks and injections. There wasn't even rapid acting insulin until like the 80s. So diabetes management changed a lot. Sometimes they didn't even have finger stick machines. They had to go to the office to get checked out. Like, so much has changed. And we're really lucky that they've been diagnosed in this era, as messed up as it is, because we have so much technology to support them and us in this process. So here it goes. Here is my story. Amara was born in 2020, and during the pandemic, which was already a very big challenge and hard on everyone, because life had changed completely for everyone. And she was born in the middle of a pandemic, and obviously I was very afraid of COVID. So we were at home and never went out, and much less took her anywhere. I was terrified of her getting COVID or anything else, because I don't want a hospital stay or complications, blah, blah, blah. I had even delayed her vaccines, and I just pushed them out like 6 months later than they were supposed to start, because I just didn't want so much stuff in her system so young, and I wanted to just do them one at a time. And so I just really, like, now at 4 is when she's finally done with all of her vaccines. And it was just like to limit the amount of exposure anywhere. And she never came in contact with anyone. None of us got COVID. Nobody was sick. Like, this girl lived in a bubble. And along came a Monday in April of 2021. She was 8 months old, and I started noticing that she started losing her appetite, and she was drinking less and less formula. And I was like, what's going on? She's eating less and less food. She's becoming lethargic. I was concerned. I did telemedicine. I was like, what's wrong with my child? Is she teething? This seems like very extreme for teething. This, like, she was so lethargic. She was, she would normally take really long naps, but she would take a 4-hour nap and then wake up, be fed, and then want to go right back asleep on my shoulder. And I was like, this is bizarre. And and then fast forward, I did Wednesday night. Yeah, we did a telemedicine. They're like, I was really concerned. I think I did 2 telemedicine calls and nobody caught anything, because she wasn't even like peeing more frequently. She wasn't really extra thirsty. All those other symptoms they say. She didn't have sweet breath, like none of that. Like she wasn't throwing up. She was just really lethargic. So I was like, this is a weird teething symptom. And wait, fast forward. So it's Wednesday night. Thursday morning, she wakes up and she's dehydrated. Like her lips were all chapped. She was having the rapid breathing and she was really thirsty that morning. And then she was also like throwing up the water. And what else? And the lethargy. Yeah. So it was like the throwing up, the lethargy. She was really thirsty, but then throwing up the water too. And again, I never noticed any like high urine output. And then what really freaked me out was that rapid breathing, and her lips were like all like, I don't want to say chapped, but yeah, like she was dehydrated. And I was like, how, because she had been drinking less and less and less formula, but she wasn't completely unfed or anything. So it wasn't even enough that, like, she wasn't not eating enough for me to even bring it up in the call, like with the telemedicine. Like she had just reduced her consumption like gradually since Monday. Everything else seemed fine until that Thursday morning. We took her straight to her pediatrician at 9 a.m, and the pediatrician saw her and he immediately knew what it was. Thankfully, he had her blood drawn and it was 480 was her blood sugar. So she was in the beginning of DKA, and he said, pack your stuff, you're going to Joe DiMaggio. We can't call an ambulance because they don't deliver to Joe DiMaggio. I don't know how else to say it. And you want the best care for this situation. So he's like, go home, pack a bag, take her. I don't think he should have told me to pack a bag. I think he should have told us to go straight to the hospital and figure it out later. Longest drive of my life, because we were coming from West Plantation. We had to go all the way to Joe DiMaggio in Hollywood. I was praying to, Todo Santo, to everybody, like, please, watch over my babies. I remember just sitting in the back seat, like freaking out, looking at her, like so lethargic and out of it, and just being on I-95 and just praying and freaking out, and just, oh my God, it was awful. So we get to the ER and it begins. We were in ICU the first day. We had a really hard time getting an IV in her, so they had to do a PICC line in her groin, which was awful. Again, I was in ICU and I'm just like in shock because there's like 8 medical professionals just surrounding her and running around in the chaos trying to get this PICC line in, and I'm just sitting there in shock and nobody can come. I can barely even have her dad with me because of the pandemic. And that, thank by the grace of God, they let him in with me, and nobody else can come. And it was just like, what is happening? So they finally got her on an IV and started giving her insulin and leveled things off, and then we were taken out of ICU and put in a regular room, and then began diabetes training. And the shock, I had no family history of type 1 diabetes. Nobody I knew personally, like close to me, with type 1 diabetes, where I would be at least familiar with the nature of the beast. Nothing. Like no family history on either side that we know of, and so it was completely foreign to me. No type 2 diabetes, like somebody close to me to even have an idea. Not that that's the same, because it really isn't. And prepare for the people that are gonna be like, oh my God, my grandmother has type 2 diabetes, I know how it is. No, you don't. It shouldn't even have the same name. You're gonna get all of those. Super annoying. And I began the diabetes training, and then she was so little that they were freaking out. The hospital was freaking out. The endo team, they were just like, we haven't had a baby diagnosed this little in like over a decade. And they were scrambling, which did not make me feel good. And I didn't know there was others like me. I didn't know there was more. So many more in South Florida and in this country and in the world. Like, I had no idea until many months later I found the Facebook groups, which is why I created this portal, so you know everything now that I wish I knew. Everything that I have here were things that I wished my diabetes educators gave me, and it was only a fraction of this, if any. Also, though, to their defense, I was so overwhelmed too that digesting a lot of content in education was really hard for me, because I was very overwhelmed. So I just wanted to stick to like what I absolutely needed to know in the moment. I did read like 1 or 2 books, maybe 1, but a lot of my education was learning through the Facebook groups, because it was like in real time, my kid's going through this, or you can ask them, you know, my kid's having this or having that, and they would answer right away in the middle of the night, when sometimes it was, you know, you're waiting for your endocrinology team, the doctor on call, to call you back at 4 a.m, and you're just sitting there like beside yourself. So it also gives you something to do and maybe some quick answers. Don't take medical advice from these people though. Always consult your team. But for things like skin rashes and how to do sick days, and supplies and equipment glitches and things like that, it was great. So anyways, we're in the hospital for 10 days. I remember the diabetes team coming to talk to me, and I had my iPad, and I was just like, I don't register anything you're saying to me. My iPad is recording what you're saying so I can digest this later. You know, obviously we had to learn how to dose her immediately, but I just had to continuously like refer back to that recording and my notes, because I was just in shock. And so they gave us all the resources, all the information. I was terrified of giving her injections. Like 2 weeks earlier, I was crying about the idea of having her ears pierced. And 2 weeks later, I'm in a hospital and they're telling me I have to inject my baby multiple times every day forever. And I was just like, I mean, I cried rivers. And it's just, yeah. So we practiced and we learned and we went home, and you're just like, what the fuck just happened? I've left with a healthy baby and it came back with a baby with a chronic illness, like, and it comes out of nowhere. So you start adjusting. What are you gonna do? And we learned how. It was hard because she was little. She was an infant, so like she was on formula and baby food. That was about it. And a lot of that, it's not like, you know, a lot of protein and stuff. It's like stuff that is very liquidy and not enough sustenance. So the insulin, you have to be really careful. Oh, the other thing that happened in the hospital is that they had to dilute the insulin. So you have a whole bottle, and they would take out, it was like 10 ml, take out 9, so like the majority of it, and fill it in with the diluent. And that's what we would give her. It was like hyper diluted insulin. And then she would, on the honeymoon phase, which you guys are in right now, so everything's like very tiny doses and they don't need a lot, and that lasts from months to sometimes a year or 2. Hers lasted probably like a year. And as their, I guess, pancreas goes more and more offline. And so yeah, that was a whole ordeal, because getting diluted insulin from the manufacturer of the insulin people during the pandemic was madness. But finally, we got it. We had to learn how to dilute the insulin ourselves. And then we started giving her injections. We weren't on a carb ratio yet because she was so little. We were on a sliding scale, so we know about that. And it was hard. It was hard. I get very, I was grieving already my father's death, who he had passed away during the pandemic, and I barely saw over the pandemic, and that hit me really hard. The December, 4 months prior to that. So I was already with severe postpartum depression. I was grieving my dad's death. Like, I wasn't like already rock bottom when she got diagnosed. And this just wreaked havoc on my nervous system. And then you get all the sleepless nights and all the things that you're gonna begin to experience or are currently experiencing. And yeah, sleep. They told me sleep is a thing of the past. I remember I spoke to a T1D mom after, and it's just very shitty sleep from now on. Naps are when I really kind of recover, if I can squeeze in a nap here and there. Because I know that thankfully you have at least one other person that can be fully trained so that you can allow yourself to nap. And those 2-3 hours were like gold because they were awake, so I wasn't worried about anybody sleeping through alarms. Everybody's awake. There's more people in the house, if anything. There's more eyes, there's more notifications, there's just a lot more, and I can really let go and like fall asleep deeply and turn off all the alarms, and know that she'll be taken care of. At night, it's a whole other ballpark because everybody's worried they're not going to wake up to one of the alarms. And I'll let you know that that's probably going to happen at least once. So be ready to forgive yourself because it happens to all of us, even with 8,000 gadgets. Somehow, a power will go out, apps will glitch, and you won't get phone call, or you won't hear the alarm, even the sugar pixel, which it wasn't that I didn't hear it. The sound alarm, the puck is what I use from the sugar pixel, the vibration thing, and the vibration thing breaks a lot easily. I've gone through many of them. So don't rely on the puck like I did 100%. You have them both turned on. So if one doesn't work, the other does. Anyways, so sleep is gonna be really choppy, which also brings down like your bandwidth because you're sleep deprived. Ask for help, even if you're the type of person that doesn't ask for help. Ask for help. Be ready for the isolation because nobody's gonna understand. Maybe you have one person that might understand if you're lucky in your circle, but a lot of us don't. And unless you really make friends with T1D parents locally, or at least one person online, like, you don't need to have 1,000. You just need to have like one that'll be there, or 2 or 3 that you can just kind of message when you can. And you don't need like a whole village if you do great, if you do have that. But it's, only 1% of all diabetics are T1D, something like that, 1 or 2%. It's a very small club. And so I was already isolated during the pandemic. Then you add like the diagnosis isolation, and then be ready that the people you think that were going to be there for you may not be there. That includes family. The people you never thought would be there are going to be there and support you. Be ready, because it affects. It's kind of like when somebody dies, you see people's true colors. It kind of happens like that too. You're currently grieving. You're gonna grieve the life that you thought you were gonna have with your kid, and it's gonna look very different. And you're gonna go through all the stages of grief, and in no particular order, and then you're gonna cycle through them over and over again. Some people grieve for a long time. I did. I had a really hard time accepting what happened. And then I've seen, like, the common thread I've noticed is that if you're a medical professional already, like a doctor or a nurse, or already have someone in your family with T1D, they tend to bounce back a lot faster and be more accepting of the circumstances and move forward and just kind of cope better. I was not one of those. Um, what else do I want to say? Diabetes is different every day. Do not expect that you're going to do everything the same exact way every day and have the same results. It will not happen. Over 40 variables contribute to what affects blood sugars, over 40 different things. One of them is food. The rest is exercise and sleep and stress levels, growth spurts, hormones, um, menstruation, anxiety, I swear, like the full moon, like all these things also affect. So there'll be like a situation where I would normally have to give insulin and I don't, because they're like in a new setting. Like if I take Amara to a new setting, a new playground, a party or something like that, and it's like new environment, she doesn't need it. Like she barely like needs insulin. She'll stay low. So like when she's anxious, she runs on the low end, and then she doesn't drop when she does exercise unless she's in the pool. But if she's doing Kid Strong, which is more like gymnastics, she never drops. But if she's in the pool or if it's splash pad, she'll like tank. So it all depends. If it's hot, they go high. Maybe every kid's different. Some kids it's hot and they go like, every kid is different. So you have to learn, like not only diabetes, but diabetes plus your child equals something unique in of itself. So what one person says for what works for them or happens to their kid, it's could be completely ass backwards for your child. So keep that in mind. This is why I say like this is some crazy interpretive dance of a disease, because it just, you have to decipher everything and then learn how, you know, this diagnosis functions in their bodies. The other thing I wanted to say or keep in mind, devices, this is very, like I learned this recently, kind of within the last year. Every child or person's skin is unique, in the sense that like you might have one parent where they're like, oh man, like these sensors don't stick on my kid, like they just fall off. And on my kid, that sensor sticks like crazy glue. So it all depends on like how sweaty they are, how oily their skin is, how dry their skin is. Some kids get a lot of major skin irritations to the adhesive. Some kids get none at all. Mine got developed an allergy 3 years later to the skin barrier to prevent reactions. So you just learn like all these nuances. So even your child's skin's gonna be different, and how these devices like adhere, and if they adhere well or not. So that's gonna be a thing to keep in mind. So yeah, I don't want to make this super long because I know I'm long-winded, but I just wanted to share like what it was, our diagnosis story. It's been hard. I don't want to say it gets easier. It's gotten easier. Why? Because she went from multiple daily injections, MDI, to a pump. So I asked in a post on the Diapers and Diabetes group that you can look up if you want. When you join the group, it says like, what do you wish you had people tell you when you were first diagnosed? And all the common answers were, get a CGM as soon as possible. I can't imagine they would let you leave the hospital without one, but apparently you can. That happens. Get on a pump as soon as you can. Some diabetes teams say you have to do multiple injections for at least 6 months before they recommend getting a pump, because of the pump breaks. You need to know how to do injections. That is true. However, I don't think 6 months is necessary. I think maybe like 1 to 3 months. But yeah, you need to be comfortable with injections, because things happen like hurricanes, and especially down here, and you need to know what to do if you can't get your pods and your pumps. You need to be able to manage this diabetes old school, which is injections and finger sticks. What else? I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Okay, oh yeah, how hard it is. So what made it easy was that we got on the pump. that made life so much easier. Oh my god. And then the Omnipod 5 came out, and that became even easier. And then the Dexcom came out, it's like G7, and that made it much easier. So technology is getting better. Just within these 4 years of her having diabetes, you know, Dexcom advanced and Omnipod advanced. And those two combinations have worked well for us. But everybody has their preference to devices. It's up to you. Just go with whatever you feel is right for your child and you. But that made a big difference. The other things that parents said were CGM, Dexcom, carb counting apps, knowing that diabetes is different every single day, and no matter if you do the same thing every day. And the sugar pixel was like hands down the number one answer, was make sure you buy a sugar pixel. They're $100 each. At first you'll be like, oh my god, that's expensive, and then when you realize how good it is, you're gonna just throw your money and be, take my money, like I want one in every room and at everybody's house and at their school if you can, and blah blah blah. So getting the sugar pixel as soon as we can is gonna equal sleep, because the alarm is ridiculously loud and obnoxious, and the thing vibrates, and you can put the vibration thing under your pillow or whatever. So that helps a lot. Because counting on the Dexcom app alone for notifications, do not do that. They are not great, they are not consistent, and they're not very loud. The other app is Sugarmate. Get that. I put all of that in that ASCP resources page. Set that all up, because Sugarmate plus Sugar Pixel is going to help you sleep. Sugarmate will call you, which can bypass all of your phone's settings, and they also has like really jarring sounds when it's predicting the numbers are falling fast quickly or rising quickly. It still terrifies me till this day. It's just like, oh my god, they nailed it with that one. It calls you, but like everything, when they do like a system update, it like logs you out and it doesn't call you, which is why I have, is it Guru that calls me too, or Eddie, or all three? I don't know. I have all of them set up to call me, so if one doesn't work or fails, the other one does. Plus Sugar Pixel, plus counting, you know, the Omnipod will make a sound, but it's the sound it makes is when it's like 50, which is way too low. Dexcom has a new feature that can predict lows, that it just rolled out in their last update. That's really nice. I have that turned on. So many things. So those were the biggest things. It was just like pump, CGM, Sugar Pixel, nutritionist. That's something feeding Amara. Fed is best, just like when you're breastfeeding or not deciding to breastfeed. Fed is best. Like, don't go crazy. Don't put them on keto if they're tiny, because they need carbs to grow. So don't make that mistake. Unless they're much older. What else? Give them normal food if you want. I mean, of course you can give them whatever diet you want, but like, there's a danger of like girl T1Ds developing eating disorders in their teens, because of their relationship to food, because of the diabetes. And I'm terrified that that's going to be a thing, so I don't withhold treats from her necessarily. You know, I try to give her a balanced diet, but she turned out, as she got older, got super picky eating, and it's just gotten worse, and it's I don't even want to talk about it. It's just really bad. So we pump the nutrients in and smoothies and stuff, but if she wants to have a cookie, depending on her numbers, if she's in a good, you know, in range, I'll let her have the cookie. They can eat. Like, I was worried they would never be able to eat again or eat anything and struggle. They can eat everything. You just need to know how much insulin to give, and you will learn that a day at a time as the occasions arise. And then you will be so good at carb counting that you will be able to look at a plate and really freaking accurately guess how many carbs that plate is, because you will learn typical carb counts for veggies, for sweets, for cookies, for fries, for strawberries, for peanut butter, which is barely nothing, for breads, which like you will learn just by looking at it. But thankfully there's apps now that can take a picture of the food and tell you more or less, you know, how many carbs it has. I like to cross-reference those for fun, just to make sure it's, it's still AI, and it can make mistakes. Even Chat GPT, if you're desperate and on the run, have Chat take a picture and upload it to GPT and just say, hey, how many carbs more or less do you think it is? Make sure it can see the food like really good, that it's not all mixed together. And it did a pretty good job. And it's just, there's a lot of gadgets on to help us, so you're not alone. You have your Breakthrough T1D community. There's many other communities around. You have me. If you're completely overwhelmed and you want to go through this, the hub that I made together, and I explained to you like this, the different things that are in the hub, we can do that. I tried to make it as automated as possible. I'm officially going back to work now. With this video is filmed April 2025. And I'll be starting work soon, full time. So that'll be another milestone as a D1D mom. Another side note, this illness will create a ginormous, what's the right word? An enormous weight on your relationship with your partner. Unless they're T1D2 and you guys are like, this is no big deal. But for the most of us, it's a big deal. And keep that in mind, that you need to nurture that too. Because if not, it'll create a giant wedge in the relationship, like it did to mine. And we are no longer together, but we are cohabitating to be able to take care of our daughter as best as possible until further notice. So that's been a whole other dimension to this. Please look at all the resources I've put. I put like the cream of the crop of what's helped me. I haven't put everything under the sun because there's so much for diabetes and it's really based on preference. But what I feel is like critical information, it is in this hub. I will update it as I see fit when I come across things that I'm like, wow, this is great. And let's stay connected. If you want to send me a voice memo on WhatsApp or Telegram, feel free to do so. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. I didn't really want to talk to anybody because I was crying all the time in the beginning, and just overwhelmed. If you just want to text, you can. If you don't want to do anything, that's fine, but use the portal, that's fine too. Just do whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you have bandwidth for. If you want to like not respond now and respond to me in a year and be like, hey, this hub, I used it or I didn't, or thanks for sending me a message, whatever you want. Like, well, I'm in diabetes, hopefully there'll be a cure. And if this gives you any hope, there's a company called Vertex and they're really close to finding a cure. But from what I hear, everybody hears like, oh, in 5 years there'll be a cure, has been like a thing for the last 50 years. So I don't want to lie to myself either, but it really seems, I mean, they're going to the FDA to be able to use what are those called, the special cells? I can't even think right now, my brain. So they are able to implant these cells and they start producing insulin, and it's without immunosuppressants, which is the key because it's worked in the past, but with immunosuppressants, which is not good. And what they're doing is like Vertex 800 and something X, I don't know what is the name of the study. And so we might have results soon. So hopefully our kiddos won't have to deal with this forever. And there's a cure on the horizon. But in the meantime, we've got to do what we have to do. That's it. That's all I've got for now. I'm looking at, I don't even know what time it is. 12:40. Okay, she's in school right now. So I get a little bit of time for me. And which is new. I went with her to school for 2.5 years. She started at 2 in a little like Montessori thing, and I went and stayed and managed her diabetes for 2.5 years because I couldn't drop her off. Nobody there. There was no school nurse, no staff to manage it, and now there is. So things happen, and I never thought I'd get to see that day where I can drop my kid off and ignore, I don't say ignore, but really not have to watch her numbers like a psychopath, and know that she's in good hands. So I hope that that is the same for you. If your kid is older and you need help with a 504 plan, I have not reached that place yet. Note, Broward County is a shit show for nurses in the school system managing diabetes. There is, if you go into the Facebook group for South Florida T1Ds, there's a person called Beverly something. She's always posting in the group. Just look for Beverly in the post, and she's like the 504 like guru. Her son's T1D and already I think out of high school, but she knows like all of the ins and outs of like how to do the school nurse thing and the 504 plans and your rights and things and the laws and all that stuff. She's fantastic. And that's it. I think that's all I've got for now. Whatever I'll remember, I will try to add it in the hub. And thanks. No, not thanks for being here. That's weird. I'm sorry that you're here. But we're in this together, and I wish you lots of peace and in range blood sugars, which they don't even commit to those. What else? See, now I'm having other things come to mind. Oh my god, I can probably like do 10 videos about all the little nuances, but again, whatever, just call me and ask me if you get stuck, because you're gonna already be bombarded with stuff. The only other video I'm scheduled to really do for myself is I want to show you how I weigh carbs, because that's a skill set that you need, and it works really good for us, and it's really easy, and you don't have to worry about it too much. Blessings on this new journey. You did nothing wrong. It is not your fault. Nobody knows what causes this. You will be okay. Your child will be okay. Remember to diet. It's child first, diabetes second. Remember that. Remember all your self-care, because you're in for the long haul. So make sure that you go to the mental health resources in the hub. I have a little bit more information there of what feedback, and give yourself grace, and you're gonna do a great job. And even if you're not a medical professional like I am not, you can be really good at managing this and keeping track of things, and still giving your kid the best life possible. If you're angry, it's okay. If you're in denial, it's okay. You're gonna go through all those stages of grief, but it will be okay. Just 1 hour at a time in the beginning, 1 hour at a time. All right.